So, can you still hear me? I need to find where I put on my slides. See the press sounds alright, and then I need to open a new master neovim new, I think, with press.lua. That should be a good start. Yeah, I'm working on that thing. A little bit of patience. I think I can do this now. We can try again. And last time I asked Firefox to share an X11 window, and then everything just crashed. And now I'm going to try to do exactly the same thing once more and see what happens. So press.lua sounds like what I want. Yeah, there's something, at least. It doesn't look very good yet. I need to remember what was the command I used to make this thing go. I think, yeah, that should work. Sort of, at least. Okay. So maybe the font is all too small, or I don't know. I could try to make the font bigger if it's a problem. I mean, obviously you can see this logo, but yeah, we can. So this will be like a typical slide. So yeah, we should make the font bigger, I agree. Let's see what we can do about that. We don't need to look at my stupid logo, we can just have it on the side. Yeah, that's my computer. It's spinning. Someday I will try to optimize the CPU usage. I will need to change from GNOME Shell to a Wayland compositor that's implemented inside neovim. But I think it's 5 to 9 now, and I should sort of officially start this talk somehow. Yeah, well, let's see what happens. Maybe everything will crash again. I don't know, but I will make a try. So yeah, it's a fan. I mean, obviously the CPU itself doesn't make a sound. It's the fan on top of the CPU that makes a sound. Let's see. So this logo, I mean, there is some bugs in Pango terms, so there is some extra pixelation. But otherwise, this is just a floating window with some Unicode in it, made by the Matrix ID Sanjan. So it's some kind of organization. So I will try to talk very briefly about myself. Even bigger font. You want big font? How big font do you want? We will see what we can do. Can make it even bigger. Some of the slides will break, but then I will fix them in real time. Shouldn't be a problem. Yeah. So if you can read this now, I will talk very shortly about myself, but the things that you are interested in is neovim 0.4, which is what already exists out there in your favorite distro. And then I will talk a bit about neovim 0.5 as promised, which will be the future of neovim. So yeah, I think I need to make this display a bit bigger. So yeah, I'm supposed to be a PhD student working about deep learning, yada yada. And I've been a contributor to this neovim project since 2014. And my plan, I mean, this guy Taruda, he seemed to know what he was doing, and I was just hacking Python code because all the stuff I did in my master in engineering science, I was coding in Python. So yeah, I know Python. I'm going to fix Python, so it's as good as possible. But then, as it happens, there were some issues with the C code. Like, neovim did not support the X11 clipboard properly. It still doesn't, of course. But I wanted to improve it slightly at least, so I could have both the plus and star register. So then I had to go into the C code. And then I got kind of stuck there because, I mean, C is fun. C is not always fun, but if you have the right tools, like this address sanitizer and undefined sanitizer and clang D and clang static analyzer, then it can be okay to code in C. It's still maybe not as good as Rust or C, but it's okay. You can deal with it. And what happens now this fall is that it's not true that I'm a 50% neovim employee, but what is true is that I'm a 50%. So my PhD employment I have reduced to 50% this fall, which means that I have a so-called free time. I know that's an alien concept to many people and me also. So in theory, I have a lot of free time this fall, which I'm going to spend on getting the neovim 0.5 ready. And I guess it depends on, I don't know what Justin and Case or James somehow they job situation is. Usually they handle all the release, like all the boring stuff. But I mean, as I do have so-called free time this fall, I could give them a helping hand to get O5 done if they need it. We will see how that goes. So yeah, this slide is totally broken, but I think you can still read it a little bit. So yeah, neovim, let's see, it's stopping in time. Not too bad. neovim 0.4. Yeah, it was released last year, yada yada. And I think TJ has already talked about some of the stuff in there, like the Lua event loop. So we can just access libuv directly from Lua code, which also means that we have direct access to multi-threading in Lua. Obviously, you can't access the neovim core in multiple threads, but you can use pipes and sockets and whatnot. And there's some threading stuff if you want to. I don't know. The video should be half my stupid face and half this little window. Maybe I can make it bigger and see if it helps. Yeah. At least it knows there's a black space. Is this better? I mean, on my computer it looks like I want it to do, but maybe it doesn't for you. Anyway, I can re-record this some other time for posterity. Let's let least go with this for now and see what happens. Yeah, and the 0.4 also contained this fancy little thing that I think it done the name multigrid, but the actual work was mostly done by a summer of code student who was known as Karshny at the time, but I think he has changed his GitHub user ID. I mean, I don't keep track of people's real names. I know people by their GitHub names, so I will just call him Curitiba. But he did a lot of stuff. I mean, he went through all of the low-level screen code that managed Windows inside Vim and basically unchanged so far into neovim. And what he did, he was going through all the code that was assuming things about the size of windows and the font size inside a window. I mean, there should be, if you have a GUI or GUI, I don't know English pronunciation, but if you have a graphical application which displays our neovim instance, like the Qt client or the GTK client or whatever, there's no reason that you should need to have the same font size in different windows. So Karshny basically went through all the code that assumed that all windows had the same font size, and he removed that assumption. Which it was a bit tricky, but we managed to do it over the summer. And on top of that, I mean, was already sketching floating windows a bit before, but based on his progress, I was able to make floating windows actually somewhat nice to use and not just like a insane experiment. And then there's more stuff we did before. I have forgotten half of it, but we have some ongoing work towards proper multi-processing with context sharing or whatever. Let's move on to talk about some fun stuff. So this looks completely broken, but I mean you can still see what I'm trying to show, which is that floats. You basically have different grids inside the neovim instance that you can layer on top of each other, and you can do probably the video encoding will erase it, but you can see a little bit of the window below blending through. I think if we do like, no, it's not set to do auto completion. Maybe I can do like ls. Yeah, it works a little bit. You can still see the status bar. Let's see if I can get back to this file that I wanted to have here. So my goal is in somehow we should get Smile into neovim 0.5, and I think we can do it. As you see, it's not fully working, but we have a little bit of work in progress. So this does not work at all. It's completely unreadable. I think I need to restore this session because it's completely broken now. The Smile broke it. Yeah, there it's again. Smile is dangerous. There's a reason we haven't done it yet. So if I can get the font size to be readable once more. So let's go down where we were here. And it's glitching out and showing parts of my old screen. That's wonderful. Yeah, so here we are. I mean, this is a better illustration of what I wanted to show below, which is that you have this base grid, which is like the main grid, and then you have things that just float on top of it. And we don't really do any window management. I mean, it's a very, very low-level toolkit, so you can write a plugin, which is essentially like a terminal window launcher if you want, because we got all the neovim code for that now, even if we don't got like a reasonable feelings or whatever. Yeah. So, but we can do some cool stuff with this, because what's a grid? And the answer is, of course, that everything is a grid. So in ordinary text editor windows is a grid, and the pop-up menu is a grid, even if I fail to show that. Yeah, the command line is a grid. I think I can show that. I want this to work. Yeah, it's a little bit hard to read, but I mean, you can adjust the blend level until it looks good. I mean, it doesn't look good now because I restarted my color scheme from scratch, and it's still not done. It will never be done. Yeah, messages is a grid. Yeah, that's what I really meant. Yeah, so libvterm is in a grid. So this smile that you saw, you could think that would be like a terminal instance which contains some embedded Vim9. I mean, that would work, but I don't think we want to include Vim9 inside the neovim package. So what I did was something different. So I just implemented screenshot for the terminal. I mean, it already exists. I mean, you have this ASCII thing which does videos in the terminal. So it's not a new concept. But I just wanted something simple, so I can do a screenshot. So not a video, but a single screenshot of the terminal and store that in a very compact text representation. So this smile thing, this is actually I call it a .cat file because you just cat it inside any terminal. And it contains the ANSI sequences that is needed to recreate whatever the state of the terminal was at an earlier point of time. Yeah, so it's not a new idea, but it's still, I think we should have it because it feels like it's like a nice little thing. So, more seriously, I mean, my ambition is that we can get 0.5 done for Christmas. If not, like final 0.500, maybe at least like an RC release candidate that we can ask other people to try, and we say that the API will not break anymore, so it's just some final bugs or whatever. You can, you can still you can use you can use the master branch already today, but the API is not really stable yet. I mean, we will need to change the API in some ways, so you will. I mean, you can use the nightly, but you will need to upgrade your plugins together with neovim nightly, and occasional things will break. But I mean, it works. I use the nightly most of the time, and so in this release we have another stuff. We have this LSD client. I'm not going to talk about it because I know TJ well, and also Mikael and Ashkan was working hard to make this thing into the master branch. Yeah, tree-sitter. So I was starting on tree-sitter, doing some basic demos, but then this guy, Vig, he came in and he has done a lot of things to make it more like a real experience, so like a configuration layer. And he also started, I mean, I lost track of time. Was it 2 days ago, Vig, that you started on this architect thing? Which will be a huge thing. I mean, essentially we will do structural editing for any language. Any language that we have a tree-sitter grammar. Which is not a big deal because you can write your own grammars, it's not that hard. If you have like anyone who sort of have worked in compilers in some way can go in and write a tree-sitter grammar. It's like regex, but a little bit more complicated than regex, but not much. So you can do it if your favorite language is not supported. And so it's basically find and replace, but instead of regex, use something else which actually understands the syntax of the language. Which is really nice and lets you do refactoring like crazy. So I'm excited for that. I don't think we will include it like in 0.5, the release itself. But this little plugin, you can just install it, this architect plugin, and so it's going to be very quick to use it. Yeah, and as promised, I will do this smile and neon cats because people have been complaining for it so long. So let's do it. Now that floating windows or screenshotting is working, we can do it quite easily. So let's do it. And I think, I mean, if you have a neovim, if you do a neovim init.vim from scratch, where you mostly use Lua plugins, like, I mean, I have been rebooting my init.vim like 2 weeks ago. If you only stick to modern plugins, I mean, it will start quite quickly. I mean, less than 100 milliseconds. But I think if you want to do this multi-processing thing, so you can spawn like, I mean, if you need 100 Vim instances, then you should be able to spawn them in like 10 milliseconds or whatever, or at least 10 milliseconds per instance. I think you should be able to do that. So first I thought about unexec, which is how Emacs works, because loading all that Lisp code from scratch is very slow. So what they do is that they start a basic binary, then they precompile all the Lisp code, and then they do the reverse of the exec call. But they want to move away from that, so I don't want to rely on that existing in Unix anymore. But with just using fork from the 70s, like this Unix syscall, you can do a lot with that. I mean, you need to start neovim from scratch once when you start your day, like the first neovim you ever start. It's going to take 200 milliseconds. But then the next neovim after that, maybe, I'm not sure, maybe from 1 to 10 milliseconds, I think we can do. And of course, every time you change your config, you will need to reload your server, of course, because then you reparse all your Lua code. Let's see how we're doing in time. Yeah. So yeah, and then we have some stuff for 0.6, which maybe gets into 1.5. I don't want to promise that because these are like quite tricky. So we have like the summary of code from last year, which will allow us to do many refactors of the GI infrastructure that we wanted to do. So everything I've showed you with float so far is basically an ugly hack. I mean, I call it a compositor, but it's not. I mean, I just recompute everything all the time, which works if you have a fast terminal. But we don't want to do that. We want it to be like lazy and only recompute the small parts of the screen that actually have changed. Because if we do that, we can rewrite the compositor in Lua, so you can script in Lua, and it will be fast enough if you only run the Lua code through the screen state that the user actually will be seeing, and not just these intermediate states that flash by. Then Lua should be fast enough to do composition also. So I think we can do that. Maybe not this year, but sometime soon we should do that because it's fun. And we can do all sorts of effects that no sane person will do inside a text editor. But if you I mean, I don't consider myself to be a sane person. I don't know. And yes, R plugins. So we have this older concept called remote plugins. And it still works. I mean, you can still do all the things you want with R plugins, but like the tooling for R plugins is a little bit behind. I mean, you need to manually rerun, update remote plugins, and then restart your neovim. Why should they ever need to restart a neovim? But I mean that seriously. So you need to restart your neovim to make R plugins work. And sometime soon I will fix that. So I mean, of course you can still restart your neovim. It's quick, but you shouldn't need to just because some design decision that we made 5 years ago that's no longer relevant. We should just fix that. Yeah, so I think I've said most of this already. So yeah, I will try to work on neovim on my free time, which is now a lot more time than it used to be. And as it happens, I thought I was going to spend a lot of time coding. But so many people are already coding, like TJ, Vic, Ashkan, and many more people. No more name, no more forgotten. So I will do more code review than actual coding, I think. I mean, there's some stuff that probably I should do, like I need to finish Exchange, like buffer regions, they are still kind of broken, and I think I know how to fix that. So I'm going to do that myself, I think. And I was thinking of doing a Siglang plugin host. I mean, this is it's not a new language exactly, but it's been a little bit of stealth mode, but it's starting to really shine the latest time. So if you go from Rust to C++, if that's like a modernization, then I think you can go from C to SIG. So SIG doesn't have like what's called resource acquisition is initialization or whatever it's called. It doesn't have it. It has predictable control flow like in C, which I like. But you still have differ like in Go, so you can do emulate this stealth coding if you really want. And it doesn't have a border checker yet. But I think this is such a goodly design. It's a very modern LLM-based language, so you can do door checking as a plugin to the language. Perhaps even dependent types. I would like to look into that. Now that if I don't need to code as much in neovim as I originally thought. Yeah, so we have a few minutes left. So I was going to rant for quite a while about things that I think are broken, but people are actually actively working and fixing them already. So I don't think there is some point of being ranty and angry. I mean, we should just fix dependency management. I mean, that's just a no-brainer. Open cloud should just have dependency management. You should be able to depend on a neovim release. You should be able to depend. Your plugin should be able to declare that it needs a certain commit. It should be able to declare that it needs an API function. I mean, it should be able to do anything like that. your plugin should be able to depend on a user's dot files. I mean, a dot files repo is just a repo. It's just a bunch of files. I mean, this presentation tool, which is totally not finished, I mean, it lives inside my dot files. But I shouldn't need to type git init and make it into a separate repo. You should be able to like clone my dot files repo and just pull out that one file. And you don't get any other of my madness. You won't get my mappings. You won't get my plugins because Moonrush doesn't depend on any plugins yet. I will probably rewrite it using some of the TJ code that I have reimagined for myself, but TJ has done it better already. So it will probably depend on like this plenary whatever thing in Vimnova, but nothing else. So you should be able to just pull this thing out of my dot files without of me actually doing git init. I mean, that will just save a lot of time if we crazy people who do crazy things in our dot files, we can just make it a separate Lua file and declare the dependencies of that Lua file and not do anything more. That will just do prototyping of new plugins so much quickly, and then we can do a git repo like 1 year later or anything. So I think I have it short of time, so let's go through the last slides quickly. In general, the programs, if we forget about code, like implementation details, more like a community thing, what I'm concerned about is so-called XY problems, which is what LSP tries to solve. So you have a bunch of different editors, and you have a bunch of different compiler libraries / code analyzers, and you don't want to fill in each dot in a matrix. You want each combination to just work, which it of course doesn't. You need to write code in the client for each server you want. But it's quicker than rewriting a plugin from scratch. So there's still some, I mean, LSP is doing progress. It's not perfect, but it's better than we had before, that's for sure. So I want to do more of that. For instance, take snippets. I mean, I used to say that, oh, we should just ship Ashcan snippet stuff into Open5. I mean, I should be able to just have a init.vim that looks like this. I can type it in English. No, I won't. If I can type it. I mean, because we will never fix set hidden. I mean, that's like the defense of dark arts. That's the one default that we will never fix. So you will always need one line in your init.vim that says set hidden. I was thinking, oh, I will make Open5, so I could live with this Vim RC. But that will need to make it too normative. So we shouldn't do that. Instead, what we should do is that we should formalize some kind of API for a snippets plugin to talk to like a provider of snippets. I mean, most snippets implementations are still using a syntax for defining snippets that is very similar to each another. So this is not a huge task. Someone needs to do the boring thing of writing up a specification in Markdown of the common denominator of what every snippet plugin already does, which already sort of works. So now someone needs to formalize that and get that specification into ODEC5. And maybe we will have like a very baseline implementation of snippets, so that if you just start an LSP server and do autocomplete and it returns a snippet, I mean, it shouldn't throw an error message. It should do something simple with that snippet, even if it's not very fancy. But then you can install a fancy snippet plugin, like the Sugo, DPet, or Ashcans, or whatever. Yeah, but there's a bunch of different examples of the same pattern, but I think you get the idea. I mean, we will do the same thing with Telescope and package management, fuzzy fingers. I mean, we can make APIs and we can semi-formalize them in Open5. That's what I want to do. Yeah, also GPT-3, of course. I mean, we should have a, probably not inside the binary, but we will have, if you can get an access API key to GPT-3 from OpenAI, you can just paste that key into one of the plugins like TG, and it will work. It will write the code for you. The AP, yeah. Yeah, we will need to talk to this Ben Jackson guy. He doesn't like Lua, but somehow we can arrange to have his code run inside neovim anyway. So we need to transpile his Python code into Lua. I think we can do that. It shouldn't be too hard. Come on. It's 2020. We can transpile all the languages. Yeah, I think this. I think I have removed the schedule tab. I don't have the schedule, but I think I'm out of time. I think I have 2 minutes actually for questions. So just ask me anything if you want to, or I just leave. I mean, it's up to you. This was supposed to be an example of what you can do. I mean, you don't really need bitmap graphics. You can use this Unicode. So I was trying to show a nice picture for Campfire because that's what the neovim community is. Yeah, of course I'm proud of you. I'm proud of all of you for making this community what it is. I mean, it's awesome. We just do crazy things without asking permission. And then we try to stabilize things in time so even same persons can use it. That's why we do releases at all. So called same people can use our stuff, even if they don't want to git check out master with all the code every day. I mean, not everyone does that. Yeah, I'm also very excited. I don't have my next idea. That's a good question because the things in neovim, I think I can turn. I was going to learn Sway. I mean, this Wayland compositor which does splits and things like that. But I think I can I can take a good neovim graphical interface, like this GTK neovim thing that Ville, a Finnish guy, Haukulainen, something like that. And he's going good progress. So I can just port that to run directly on like the kernel, frame buffer, or Intel, whatever interface without needing like another space server. And then I need to implement I need to hack into Waypipe so I can convert Wayland surfaces into floating windows. I think, yeah, of course, yeah. Better relevant text for sure. I want to do that. A lot of improvements in that area. So I can just pipe Wayland windows into floating windows. And then using Wayland X or whatever it's called, I can pipe X windows to Wayland and then to neovim. So I'm not sure, it doesn't seem like anyone will kick me out if I go over time. And I think I'm over time now. So I think I will just leave and see what happens. And are you sure, Adam? It's no one like that's waiting. I'm not stealing someone's time. Are you really sure? Yeah, okay. 5 more minutes. Let's do that. If the boss has spoken. Yeah. So X marks are sort of working. There's a lot of rough edges in X marks that we need to fix. And I sort of know how to fix them. I think I can fix them in time for Christmas. So it doesn't break in runaway, it should just work. I mean, highlights will randomly disappear because the implementation is more or less a lie. I mean, I just keep track of the 16 latest highlight groups at a time. So if you have more than 16 overlapping highlights, they will disappear on you. But that's not hard to fix. I just need to write some code that's missing. Oh, Vim plugin marketplace. Yeah, I see that's an extension of this. Dependency management is the first step. We will probably use, if you can just use LuaRocks, for instance, just an MK has talked to the LuaRocks guys, and we can just use it for everything, even if it's not just Lua code, maybe. And once that's done, that's the step 1, then we can think of like some kind of very nice web page where you can browse for neovim plugins, some kind of marketplace experience. Yeah, probably I will be. I mean, so far Justin MK has been the release manager. Jameson has also done some releases. So maybe I will do this release. I guess it depends on Justin MK how much daytime work. I mean, if he's very busy, of course, then I will take the time and do it. Justin has been very great. I mean, he's documenting all his like processes that he does to do releases. So I don't need to bother him for 10 hours to ask how to do it. I can read through Justin MK's notes and his doc files and see how he does a release. And I can try to do it myself if it's needed, if he's too busy. Because I don't know his day job situation at all, but my situation is on that now. Who is sorry for what? I'm not really following the chat right now. But yeah, I think we can have a great time together. That's the most important part for me. And then release some kind of useful thing towards the end of the year that we can show to a wider world of text editor users. And maybe have a good time. I think I will leave now because I think I have said everything I wanted to say. You can always tweet at me, or better use GitHub. Just ping me in any GitHub issue if you have more questions. I mean, or go to the Gitter chat. I am always checking out the Gitter chat first before anything else. So just at me in Gitter if you have more questions. So see you later.